I left my whole life, my home, in order to continue to have a voice. Those were the words of photographer Roya Heydari as she left Afghanistan in August last year amid the Taliban's takeover. It's the second time she's been exiled from her home country, which she also left as a child during the group's first time in power. In the decade or so she did live in Afghanistan, Heydari dedicated herself to documenting the beauty of its land and people, particularly the lives of women in rural areas. Now living in France, she's an artist in residence at the Cité des Arts here in Paris. We're excited to have her on set with us today. Roya Heydari, thank you so much for being here. This is your second exile from Afghanistan. Can you start by telling us about your childhood and the first time that you left the country?
Sure. Hi, Alice. Well, this is the second experience of being in exile for me. For 6 years, from 1 to 6, when I was a child, I spent it in Iran. And then when we had the first election of choosing the president, we moved back to Afghanistan. And after that, I lived in Afghanistan, which I had the best experience in my life in my country. And yeah, this is the second time in Paris.
And what was it like having to leave for that second time when you'd only just come back not quite so long ago?
Well, it's quite hard to being refugee or living your whole life in a day. So I'm just struggling and trying to accept it and adopt the life here.
And in your time in Afghanistan, or maybe even before, you became a photographer. Can you tell us why that appealed to you?
When I started my journey as a photographer, I was a student of political science. And it was not my life. And then I accepted to be a student of political science because of my family. They wanted a lawyer in their family.
Many do.
But I was more into the art, and especially when I used to travel a lot between different provinces in Afghanistan. And I seen so many beauties of the people, of the culture, of the places. And I was there should be a way I capture and talk about all of these things in another platform to the world, because we are not in that dark side news are showing to the world. Like, we need to see the bright and light side of the Afghanistan too.
Yeah, we do see so many images of violence from Afghanistan. Your photos are beautiful. Can you tell us about maybe some of the most memorable ones that you've captured?
Well, all these pictures are very important for me because it's now it's the only memory I have it here with me. And, all these pictures are from the very far villages in Afghanistan, which is not, there's not so many facilities, or people doesn't have so many schools, like clinic shops in their village. So we used to travel, we used to make stories about them. And this picture is from a very far village in Afghanistan, Badakhshan. And this is the first day of the school. Kids, the school just opened, and the kids were so happy going to the school. And because after many years, the school just opened in the village.
And their lives have probably changed so much since the Taliban came back. Is your family still in Afghanistan? And have you been in contact with people who are still in the country?
Yeah, unfortunately, my family is still there. I don't know, it's very sad. I don't know, should I say it unfortunately or no, because I kind of want to go back too. And I hope it's be enough safe one day we all go back to our home.
And so much of your work has been documenting Afghanistan. As you said, these photos are sort of your only memory. What kind of work have you been doing now that you're living in Paris?
I'm living now in an environment which is surrounded by all the artists around the world, and it's giving me an opportunity to start or to force myself again to go back to work. And there's so many kind people around me, especially the artists, that are moving me and pushing me. Okay, continue your life, continue your artwork. So I have some art project, I'm just busy and working on them.
And do you mind telling us what kind of projects?
Well, now I think more serious my focus is on my film, which is a documentary also about the artists who they are in exile. But what I'm trying to say on this film is let's not look to these people as an immigrant refugees who they are in exile. They are like more than that. Like we can focus more on the artists as who they are, like art, filmmaker, photographer. We should always mention this, their name and their character or their profession first, not like introduce them as a refugee from Afghanistan or anywhere else, and then their name and then their career.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I know I introduced you as an exiled photographer, but I could also have called you a refugee. Do you have feelings about those titles when it comes to yourself?
Yeah, sometimes it's attacked me badly because it reminds me I'm not belongs to here and my home is somewhere else. And yeah, I think it's mostly because of this.
How has it been integrating into life in Paris and in France?
Well, like there is always signs somewhere like reminds you are not from here, but it's not always like that. People are very welcoming. People are so kind with us. Like I have a good life here, but yeah, being in exile is hard. It's so many up and down.
Yeah, I mean, I myself, very different reasons, but know that it's so hard to be far away from home. Do you have any hope of going back to Afghanistan someday?
Of course, there is always hope. That's why keep continuing my work. I'm keeping strong myself because I hope one day I can go back and we can see that country in peace again.
Were you surprised when the Taliban took power again so quickly?
Well, very. Like I was not even expect that it will be very quickly because in the 15th of August in the morning, we were with our friends in a cafe, just had our normal life and having breakfast and talking about the situation. And then, so I had received a call from my mother. She said, like, we saw in the news, Taliban are in the gate of the Kabul. And I was like, no worries, don't get panicked, nothing going to be happen. Like, Americans are still here, and then foreigners are here, embassies are open, nothing going to be happen. And then when the president in the afternoon left, we got all surprised.
Did you feel abandoned by the Afghan president and also by the foreign forces that had been there?
Like even we heard that president left the country, I was still a bit hopeful because I thought the foreigners or the Americans are here, so maybe there is still a way to negotiate with the Taliban. They are not entering to the Kabul. But also when I just heard the Americans are gonna leave too, I just all my hopes destroyed, and I was like, okay, maybe everything is just finished for us.
And we don't talk about Afghanistan necessarily every day in the news anymore. What do you wish that foreign governments and the international community were doing now to support Afghanistan?
The world is now such a disappointing place now, because whenever I'm looking or watching the news, it's not anymore about Afghanistan for me. Like Ukraine joined to the club of the countries in war zone. There is still Palestine, Yemen, Iraq, Syria, and all the countries in the war zone. It makes me very sad whenever I'm watching news about these countries because this is the same pain. We are going through the same pain. And I hope we just not continue talk about Afghanistan, but all these countries at war zone.
Yeah, there are so many places that we need to keep in our hearts. Roya Heydari, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to see the future of your work and hope that one day you can go home. That's photographer Roya Heydari, exiled from her home country, Afghanistan. She's an artist in residence at the Cité des Arts here in Paris.